Hi guys, Cheshire here. Welcome to this module about Introduction to Cloud. In this module, we are going to talk about the history of cloud, the necessity of cloud, and what exactly do we mean by cloud services. We are going to cover mostly theory in this module, and this module is going to give you very basic terminologies which are involved in day-to-day communication about the cloud and how you can relate to it and what exactly does that terminology mean to you. Okay. So here is what we are going to cover in this module. We are going to talk about what is cloud. Then we are going to talk about the benefits of cloud. Then we are going to understand the terms like SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS. We are going to talk about the cloud service providers. We will give you an overview of the Azure Cloud Services. We will talk about Azure Calculator. And then finally, we are going to talk about the introduction to AWS. Okay. What is cloud? So this is like a Google definition, a Wikipedia definition of cloud. Cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data storage, computing power, without direct active management by the user. The term is generally used to describe the data center available to many users over the internet. Okay, in my opinion, and this opinion comes from the various articles and books and the knowledge which I have acquired, so it is like a global opinion. The true definition of a cloud is on demand, that is, it can be made available to you when you need, available from anywhere, like you don't need to be present at a particular location to access the computing power or the applications or the network. And third, there should not be a capital expenditure in setting up the infrastructure. So, like the cloud computing which is available today, or rather I should say that any service which is available to you where everything is available to you on demand, like you can get it when you want it. Second, you can access the services from anywhere. And third, you or your company do not have to do a high level of capital expenditure. So in terms of IT, in fact, in terms of any project, there are two kind of cost expenditure. One is called as CAPEX and the other one is called as OPEX. CAPEX means capital expenditure. That is when you are first setting up the infrastructure, the stuff which you have to buy and the initial money which you have to include in setting up the infrastructure and those kind of things. And then the second comes OPEX. OPEX means operational cost or operational expense. Now, operational expense is the regular upkeep and regular management and other kind of a work with the infrastructure or for that matter any project. So typically in a cloud computing it has to be available on demand, it has to be available from anywhere. You should not have to incur a particular capex to initially deploy it. However, there will be an opex because you will be paying a regular monthly fee to the service provider to maintain the services for you and to provide the services to you. So any service which is provided to you in that fashion can be considered as cloud computing for you. Now, what are the benefits of cloud? Well, reduced IT cost. Moving to cloud computing may reduce the cost of managing and maintaining your IT systems. All the IT infrastructure which we manage in our data centers today, the servers, the storage, the network equipment, you have to hire people to manage and maintain them. You have to do regular upkeep of them, upgrade their firmware, upgrade their operating system, migrate to newer version of available applications. So all these costs, when you go to a cloud computing or a cloud service provider, such cost in a lot of cases is eliminated. When I say a lot of cases, because it is entirely dependent on that when I'm saying cloud computing, what have you subscribed to? Is it a IaaS or is it a PaaS or is a SaaS? We are going to talk about these terminologies shortly, but just a heads up, like in in case of a SaaS, which is software as a service, you pretty much are just going to use the service and you will never be bothered about upgrading the operating system or installing security patches or anything like that. So that's what is the reduction in IT cost. Scalability. Scalability is the power to increase the computing or the available resources on demand. So we want all our resources to be highly scalable. Talk about a pizza shop. Maybe a pizza shop is most of the time it is hardly doing any business, and it is hardly processing any orders. They are sitting idle, so they don't want to spend a lot of money on a high-end server. But every Friday evening or every weekend, they are extremely busy, and they are getting so many orders that the computer get tired and it is not able to process the orders in time, and ultimately it is affecting the productivity. So had they be using a cloud solution, what they can do is that they can increase their computing power on demand. I think I would have shown you that how you can resize the virtual machines. So that is a very crude example, but maybe what you can do is that on every Friday, you go ahead and upgrade your machine to a F2 machine or a D2 high performance machine, and on every Monday you go down to a A2 or a B2 machine, and you basically use it as per your requirement. So that's one aspect of scalability. The other aspect is that in cloud computing, there is always possible. Let's say that there is a website which is providing like a booking platform to customers. So typically on events like Black Friday or Christmas, there is a lot of traffic, a lot of people coming on those websites. So what Amazon can do in the back end is that during these holiday seasons and typically busy period, they can spin up more servers. They can put on more web servers in the back end so that the load can be distributed to multiple servers. And when the holiday season is over, they can shut down those servers. So this is what the scalability is all about. Business continuity. So if you have one data center and for some reason electricity of that region is gone, then maybe you will run for a while on your UPS or whatever, but ultimately you will have to turn off the data center. So the business continuity can be affected. Whereas in Azure, what you can do is that you can have half of your servers here in Melbourne, and then half of your servers in Sydney, or maybe half of the servers across the globe in US East region. You can have your servers wherever. So you can make a business continuity plan very easily without thinking about the physical data centers or dealing with multiple people, or figuring out what is going to be the cost and the licensing obligations in different geographic regions. You basically can go ahead and set up machines anywhere. So that's business continuity. Now talk about collaboration efficiency. Nowadays, collaboration is everything. All the businesses expect that their employees should collaborate with each other. They should talk to each other, and they should be able to share data with each other. They should be able to share ideas with each other, and they can work from anywhere. They may be in US, they could be in Sydney, they could be in Japan, or they could be in any part of the world, and they need to be able to work from there. So that is what is collaboration. And cloud being available from everywhere, it makes collaboration very easy, because you don't have to depend on a certain data center or a certain server to get connected to your business applications. Those business applications are available everywhere to you. Flexibility. Once again, I discussed that because the cloud being available from so many places, it makes you really flexible, that you can work from home, or you can work from office, or you can work from altogether different geography and still be able to connect to all the services. Access to automatic updates. Like I said, that most of the cloud infrastructure is automatically managed by the cloud service provider, and you don't have to manage and maintain the infrastructure. In fact, in case of SaaS, you don't even have to think about upgrading. Let's say you have subscribed to Microsoft's most famous software as service, which is Office 365, and you're using Exchange Online. So if you would have subscribed to it back in 2010, you would have got Exchange 2010 on cloud, and today you would be running Exchange 2013 or Exchange 2016, I think is the latest version which they are running in cloud now. So all these upgrades happened, and you didn't have to spend a penny on it. They did everything by themselves. So all the updates and all the upgrades of the backend system is managed by the service provider. You don't have to do that. Like I said, guys, all the hard work is getting outsourced to the cloud service providers. So cloud is really easy. Now let's talk about the three components of cloud, which is software as service, platform as service, and infrastructure as service. What is software as service? Software as a service is a software licensing and delivery model in which software is licensed on a subscription basis and is centrally hosted. It is sometimes referred to as on-demand software and was formerly referred as software plus service by Microsoft. So software as service basically mean all the service provider in cloud who do not expose their hardwares to you, who do not expose their internal processes to you, who do not even tell you the location of their servers. You basically just subscribe to a service, you pay them a monthly fee, and you use the service. You're not bothered by anything except the use of the service. The perfect examples will be all kind of online accounting softwares which are available today, from QuickBooks to MyOB to Xero and to other service providers which are available today. Or Microsoft perfect example for SaaS is Office 365. You can go ahead and use Office 365 services from SharePoint Online to Exchange Online to other services, where you don't have to actually think about the upgrade of the infrastructure or anything, and you can just use it as a SaaS. Quite frankly speaking, Office 365 can also be categorized as a platform, because in a way you are interacting or using, sometimes you use Exchange Online for other purposes like relaying through your Exchange server. So you kind of use it like a platform instead of just as a service. But I mostly like to think of it as a software as a service. So that's SaaS. Now, what is PaaS, platform as service? Platform as a service or application platform as a service or platform based service is a category of cloud computing that provides platform allowing customers to develop, run and manage. So a perfect example of platform as a service is SQL databases. So SQL databases is Microsoft offering, which is, as the name suggests, is Microsoft database. Earlier what we used to do was that in all IT infrastructure there used to be a SQL server. Now on this SQL server there used to be multiple databases hosted, and believe me guys, SQL is a specialty on its own, and managing SQL server is a definite pain. Maintaining it and upgrading it and then migrating its databases, and then databases gets dismounted. I haven't touched upon SQL during this training because it's a pretty advanced concept, and I don't think it is in the purview of this training to put it here. However, like I said, that SQL, now what Microsoft is doing is that Microsoft provides SQL as a service in the cloud. So what you can do is that you can just go ahead and create a database there, and whatever kind of database you want. You don't get access to the SQL as a server. You don't do administrative tasks on SQL anymore. You just use the database, and you can use this database to store all kind of values and all kind of information which you want to store on it. You will use the database exactly the same way how you would have used it if you had your on-premise SQL server. But now in this case you don't have to worry at all about managing the SQL. You can just use the database and you can build upon an application. Maybe you can host your application as Azure, or maybe you can host your application somewhere else, but you can use the database from Azure and just do your work. So that's what is platform as service. Now, infrastructure as service. Infrastructure as service is the bread and butter for us, because as IT infrastructure engineer, infrastructure as service and platform as service are the components which we use a lot. However, software as service, Office 365 is definitely a soft cushy entry point which you have to know initially to do all your work. But the future actually belongs a lot in infrastructure as service. If you can work as a cloud engineer, and if you can start deploying machines and different kind of network infrastructure, then that's an amazing place to be. Now, going back to the definition, infrastructure as a service are online services that provide high-level APIs used to dereference various low-level details of underlying network infrastructure like physical computing resources, locations, data partitioning, scaling, security, backup, etc. Okay. Basically, infrastructure as service means the network which is available to you in Azure. You have created it. The firewall which is available to you in Azure. The public IPs which are available to you in Azure. The servers which are available to you in Azure. Or the storage which is available to you in Azure. So all these are infrastructure as service. You can use this infrastructure like your own personal data center, and you can install all kind of services there, and you can manage it exactly how you would have managed your personal data center. We have been using these Azure machines in our labs for past 4 or 5 weeks now, and I am sure you would agree with whatever I'm telling you right now, and you can 100% relate to it, what I'm trying to convey, that infrastructure as a service is a virtual machine, a network, and equipment available to you with no capital expenditure at a minimal cost, which you can turn off, turn on whenever you need, just do your work and move on. So that's infrastructure as service, and that is something in which a lot of the infrastructure engineer eventually are bound to go into. This is a very good responsibility diagram which I found out, and this basically talk about the difference between the on-prem, IaaS, PaaS, and software as service. So in on-premise, as you can see here, application is your responsibility, data is your responsibility, middleware is your responsibility, operating system is your responsibility. If you have running a Hyper-V server or any kind of VMware virtualization, that virtualization is your responsibility. The physical server underneath it is your responsibility. The storage which you are using for this infrastructure, that is your responsibility. And the networking which is there, the physical switches and routers which are in your data center, these are all your responsibility. So any one of them, if it fails, it's going to be on your shoulder to fix it. As an on-premise data center owner or as an on-premise administrator, I know there are multiple teams even in on-premise solutions. So it's not that network and server and virtualization is being dealt by a single man. But eventually a single man is going to be responsible. The CIO or the CTO of the company, he is overall going to be responsible for the whole network. So on-premise, everything is under that person. In infrastructure as service, application is your responsibility, data is your responsibility. So if you installed Active Directory on a virtual server, that's your responsibility. Taking a backup of that virtual server is your responsibility. Making sure that it is running, it's your responsibility. If you installed Exchange on it, like a middleware, then it is your responsibility to manage that exchange. If you installed an operating system on it, then also it is your responsibility to install the updates on the operating system, reboot the operating system or the server periodically. All these are your responsibility. However, the virtualization, that's not your responsibility. You can just go ahead and create the machines. We don't know whether Azure use Hyper-V in the backend or they also pay VMware the money. They use Hyper-V, guys. There is no VMware involved here, but just a joke. So the physical servers which Azure guys have bought, whether they have bought from Dell or Lenovo or HPE, we don't know. As far as we are concerned, we just use the virtual machine. The storage which is running in behind, is it a NetApp storage? If it is a Dell storage, or if it is some HPE storage, we don't know. And we are never going to be bothered of it. The networking, are these Brocade switches? Are these Cisco switches? Are these Juniper switches? Or what kind of physical firewalls they have? We have no clues about it. And it is not our responsibility to do that. Talk about platform as service. So we are just going to use the application and the data. So we can use SQL and the database of SQL. We even can subscribe to some kind of a backup in Azure data center itself. But if you just take the service from Azure, like the SQL database, then maybe you have to subscribe to a different backup solution, or you have to subscribe to a backup solution simultaneously within Azure, but just taking the database doesn't mean that it is being backed up as well. All right, but the SQL application, you have no control over it and you have no responsibility of it. The service will remain up, that is Microsoft's responsibility. The operating system on which the SQL database is running, again, not your responsibility. Microsoft will patch it, Microsoft will reboot the server, whatever Microsoft has to do, they will do it. You will just use the SQL database and you will develop your applications, the front end on it. Okay, server, storage, networking, nothing. It's not your responsibility. Finally, software as service. Software as service, even the application is not your responsibility. So you are just going to be a consumer, like QuickBooks in cloud or Xero in cloud, or let's say the most commonly used software as service, Gmail in cloud. Everybody uses a Gmail account. What do? Do you do any kind of admin changes in your Gmail platform? No. The only thing which you do on Gmail is send and receive email. You just use it. So that is software as service. Now these three, IaaS, PaaS and SaaS, are the building blocks of cloud. And you really as a cloud engineer have to understand that where is your forte. Whether you want to be in SaaS, whether you want to be in PaaS, or whether you want to be in IaaS. You can be in all three places as well, but the most important thing is that you have to understand where you are. I see most of the people have no clarity in their head what is the differentiation between these three things. For them, cloud is cloud and it can be any cloud, and they just want to do cloud. Whereas I want you to understand what you are doing and then go specifically granularly in a certain direction. Okay? Once again, there is an extension to the SaaS, PaaS and IaaS. So if you look here, under SaaS, everything is managed. So as you can see here, under SaaS, everything is basically managed by the cloud people. Data center, their responsibility; networking, their responsibility; server and storage, operating system, development tools, hosted application. Everything is with them. Under PaaS, data center is their problem, networking is their problem, server is their problem, operating system is their problem. The development tools is their problem, and then you manage the hosted application. Under IaaS, only these three things comes. Even the operating system is not part of it. I know you install operating system, but if you remember, when you are installing operating system, there is a box on the first page. When you are creating a virtual machine, on the bottom there is a box which makes you put a check on whether you already own a license. So if you put a check there and if you say that you have a on-premise license, then Microsoft will charge you a little less for that virtual machine, because the total price of the virtual machine also includes the licensing cost of the virtual machine. And there is no way for Microsoft to check it. Yes, you can lie, but big companies don't lie, and they should not lie, because Microsoft do audit of them. As far as you are running it in a test environment, or even if you are a small business, you go ahead and put a check on it and you may not possess an actual license, Microsoft is not going to come after you, because it's more costly to come after you than actually what they can get from you, right? So anyways, so even the operating system is not part of IaaS, rather it is part of PaaS, platform as a service, because operating system gives you an interface upon which you can do your development. So that's what the definition of PaaS is, that where you get an interface upon which you can do your development. In IaaS, you get no interface. You're actually dealing with the physical raw hardware. It's just that nowadays it has become a bit convenient and fancy, so you don't have to physically hold the servers and plug the cables in a switch. You just click some buttons or write some code and everything happens in the background on the Azure Fabric. Okay, we are going to discuss more about these Azure Fabric thing in the next module. Okay. This is a very interesting topic, cloud versus co-location services. The difference between cloud computing and co-location. Co-location is where you provide the equipment and the co-location provider host it in their data center and provide the space, power, rack and internet bandwidth. The cloud is not a place, or rather software or hardware available via internet. Okay, let me just expand upon that. The problem of hosting a physical server in your office existed from a very, very long time. So people used to have all kind of businesses, even small businesses used to have their own servers on premise. Now what used to happen was that these offices were not fully equipped to keep the servers there. Air conditioning was not that good, or the power backups were not that good. For one reason or another, there used to be a failure and the server used to go down. So it was very difficult for small businesses especially to manage and maintain their server, because if you have a huge data center, then running the AC 24/7 and providing the UPS and power backups and multiple internet connectivity to your office makes a lot of sense. But assume you are a 10 users company and you have to do this much for your server. That's a huge problem. Nobody wants to run air conditioning 24/7. Nobody wants to have multiple internet connection just so that they can maintain high availability. Like, there is a cost at which you say that I don't make this much of money to do this much for my IT infrastructure. And IT is ultimately a cost, and every business has to justify it. So what happened back in those days were, I'm talking from around year 2000 to 2010 or so, when the cloud was not that famous, the cloud which we know today. Although AWS came back in 2003, but it wasn't as famous until year 2010. So back in 2010, what was available there was the co-location spaces. So there were companies who had huge data centers. They had built up multiple internet connectivities there, huge number of IPs. They have built up huge racks there, something like this. And they have put a lot of servers there, and they also left a lot of space free there. So what businesses could do at that time was that they could go ahead and hire a server and start paying monthly fees to the service provider. These were physical servers which we used to hire. And I remember back in those days, what we were doing was that we used to hire one physical server and we used to cut multiple virtual machines on it, and we used to sell those virtual machines to our customers. So that was an interesting concept back in those days when Azure wasn't there. In fact, we do that to a certain extent even now for some customers. So that was our private cloud sort of a thing. But the physical servers used to be there. If something used to happen to our server, we actually had contact in these co-location facilities. We used to call those guys and they used to go to our server, the server which we have procured from them, or in certain other cases, there are also as an option that we can take space from them and we can put our own physical server in that space. And then again, they provide the power, the electricity, the cooling and everything, and they used to charge money for that. As far as our server is concerned, we used to manage it, and we were even physically allowed to go inside the data center if something happened to our server. So such were the co-location facilities. Now what is cloud? The cloud which exists today in terms of AWS, Azure, or maybe GCP, Google Cloud Services, a Google Cloud provider, I reckon. The cloud is not a place, rather software or hardware available via internet. So it is not a place, but it is a software as a service or hardware as a service which is available over the internet. Now what happens in a typical cloud scenario, whether you talk about AWS or Azure, is that you don't have to physically talk to anybody and ask them that can you run to my rack where my server is and check the physical network cable on my server. No, there is a whole envelope over this physical stuff. All the servers, the network and equipment, whatever is available, everything is physical somewhere, but you don't see it. What you see is a software layer. What we call that is Azure Fabric. So what you see is a fabric or a software, Azure Fabric, on which you go and you click on few buttons and it deploys the machine for you. You don't see a physical Hyper-V or virtualization or storage or physical switches or network. Of course, all that exists in the background, but that all is superbly managed by a fabric, by a piece of software, and it is available to you on demand. You make a click and it is made available to you. Nobody has to lift a finger and the service become available to you. So there is a huge difference between co-location facility and a cloud. Co-location facilities are simply data centers, physical data centers. So instead of hosting a server in your office, you put your server in somebody else's place who has better air conditioning and better internet connectivity. Whereas cloud is a fabric. You are doing everything on demand and you are doing everything with code. The biggest benefit of this fabric now is that because you do all these things by clicking, you can also do these things by writing a code. And that's why cloud is very famous today, because you can write everything that you need in piece of a code. Like you write a program in C++, and you can define all kind of parameters. Every Friday, change my machine size to F2, and every Monday switch it back to A2. You write this code, you execute this code, and now every Friday your server gets upgraded to F2 because you have to process more orders over the weekend, and every Monday it goes down to A2 and nobody have to lift a finger. No physical work involved. So that's what a cloud is. You have to understand the beauty of the fabric which is involved in a cloud, and which wasn't there in case of the co-location providers or data centers. Who are the cloud service provider? Of course, AWS, Amazon Web Services. They were the first cloud service provider. I think they came back in 2003. Microsoft Azure, although they came pretty late in 2010, but they are my favorite because Microsoft is my favorite, and I'm pretty sure that they are going to take over or go over AWS in future. I know there are a lot of people who love AWS, and I have full respect for AWS and Jeff Bezos as a businessman, but this is my personal feeling, or this is my personal want that this should happen. But if it didn't happen or doesn't happen, then also I don't mind it. You guys love AWS, I respect it a lot and keep loving it. It's a rocking interface and an amazing cloud service provider. Then GCP, Google Cloud Platform. So Google has come up with its own cloud services. I haven't had a huge chance to look at it, but I'm sure like you have signed up on Azure and you have been doing your practicals. If you want, you can sign up on GCP as well, and you can sign up on AWS as well and have a look there. IBM also launched their cloud services. I really doubt that they use it. Probably they don't even use for their own services. A lot of their services are also in AWS and Azure, but yeah, they have a cloud services. Adobe Creative Cloud, well, this is a screenshot from internet. This is Adobe Creative Cloud is not a cloud service provider. Adobe Creative Cloud is their offering in terms of that they're offering all Adobe Acrobat, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe CorelDRAW, and all these softwares in a single package, and that is Adobe Creative Cloud. So this is not a cloud service provider. Please ignore it. VMware, Kamatra, I don't know. VMware, maybe if they have a cloud, I don't know. Rackspace, they used to be a co-location service provider. I don't know if they have come up with a fabric, but yeah, like I said, that this Google screenshot even believes that Adobe Creative Cloud is a cloud, which it's not. So I really doubt Rackspace is a cloud service provider. But the definition of cloud service provider is that they need to have that fabric involved. If they don't have a fabric, that means it's not a cloud service provider. Okay. Co-location service providers. So you can go ahead and Google more, and I reckon some of them exist even today. But we used to deal with Peer One extensively. That was one co-location service provider in US. NetMagic in India. we have dealt with them, and then Rackspace, we have dealt with them here in Australia. So these are some of the co-location service provider. I reckon HPE also have a lot of data centers where they offer co-location services as well as physical servers for higher kind of services. So yeah, HPE maybe is also one such provider, but these people are dealing with physical hardware. That's so old fashioned now, guys. We are the cool people. We only do infrastructure as code and we manage the fabric. We don't get our hand dirty with physical service anymore. All right. Azure Cloud Services overview. Okay. So what is Azure? Microsoft Azure, commonly referred as Azure, is a cloud computing service created by Microsoft for building, testing, deploying, and managing applications and services through Microsoft managed data centers. Okay, so that's what Microsoft Azure is. Microsoft Azure is Microsoft's cloud. Microsoft Azure refers to, I think currently there are 7 or 8 data centers, or maybe more. I haven't counted them, but across the globe there are a lot of data centers which Microsoft has put, and all those data centers are available as regions. When you are trying to create any resource, you get to choose in what region you want to create that resource. So, and I am referring to all these words like regions and all these things because you have done all these practicals, right? Ideally, I would have not used the word and I would have said that, yeah, I have to explain these words to you, but you have created the virtual machines already. So you have chosen these regions and resource groups and these kind of things already. So I might use those words explaining these things to you. So Microsoft Azure refers to all those data centers, all those regions, and the fabric which is running on top of it, and then the numerous amount of services which it is offering to you. That whole thing is Microsoft Azure. The initial release date for Microsoft Azure was 1st of February 2010, but it wasn't very famous, I'll say, up till 2015-16. I think the last 3 or 4 years have been amazingly awesome, and in fact last few years has been really good because I see a lot of people are jumping the ship from AWS and are going towards Microsoft Azure. Once again, Microsoft Azure offers software as service. Software as service allows users to connect, to use cloud-based applications over internet. Common examples are email, calendaring, office tools such as Office 365. Software as service provide complete software solution that you purchase on pay-as-you-go basis from a cloud service provider. So, first of all, Microsoft Azure consists of SaaS. Which is the most famous SaaS offering for Microsoft? It is the Office 365. Now, Office 365 is a collection of Exchange servers, SharePoint servers, messaging servers, which is all running all together, and there is Active Directory there as well, Azure Active Directory. Now, all these things are also running in Microsoft data centers in all the regions which we just spoke about. But we use it software as a service. So if you just subscribe to Office 365, you really don't have to do much with Azure data centers because you are a customer of a software as a service platform and you just want to use that service. Whereas Azure is a greater deal. Azure has some space for Office 365, like for Azure business, Office 365, Microsoft Office 365 is a customer. And internally, there are cost centers and money is being paid to each other. I know everything belongs to Mr. Bill Gates, but internally, the Azure data center people would be collecting some kind of money, at least on paper, from the Office 365 people as well. Because Office 365 is using the space inside Azure data center to provide its services. So that's the relationship between Azure and Office 365. And Office 365 is the software as service. Microsoft Azure also gives you platform as service. What is platform as service? Azure Active Directory. So today there exists an Active Directory in cloud which you can use to create your user account. In fact, Office 365 is ultimately an installation of Exchange and SharePoint and other applications. And you already know that you cannot install Exchange until there is an Active Directory. Remember, the schema gets upgraded. If there wasn't had been an Active Directory, then where would the schema get upgraded? So you do need Azure Active Directory to install Office 365 Exchange servers. Alright, so Azure Active Directory is being used by Office 365 as well. But along with that, you can use Azure Active Directory to authenticate various other applications. You have another application, let's say QuickBooks or Zero, which is running for you, or maybe Adobe Creative Cloud, which you have subscribed to, or there is another service provider, any cloud-based service which you have subscribed to. What you can do is that you can link that up with Azure Active Directory, and then you will start using your Azure Active Directory credentials to log into that. This is called as a SAML-based authentication, and this helps you do a single sign-on. We will talk about it more later, but Azure Active Directory is a platform which helps you secure your cloud identities, and instead of maintaining multiple identities, when I say identity, I mean username and passwords for multiple different applications, you can integrate all those applications, and no matter what those service providers are, you can integrate applications from so many providers, from QuickBooks to Dropbox to Sooner to pretty much anybody who you can think of. They can get integrated with Azure Active Directory. So this way your users can maintain a single credential of Azure Active Directory, and they can access Office 365 as well as 20 other applications which your business uses. So that's a platform as service. Again, SQL databases, I have been giving you examples. So that is the platform as service for Azure. Operating systems. So infrastructure as service consists of the physical hardware. Now what operating system you install in it, whether Linux or Windows or Unix, whatever you want to install on it. But operating system is again a platform. So when Microsoft gives you a license to install on your virtual server, that is considered as platform as a service, because after installing that operating system, you can develop things over it. Alright. So that's the example of Microsoft Platform as Service. Now finally, Microsoft Infrastructure as Service. IaaS refers to the capability of setting up servers, client, network switches, firewall, load balancer, storage, etc. on Azure Fabric in a Azure data center. Azure IaaS particularly consists of three components. What are those components? Azure Network, Azure Storage, and Azure Compute. So in order to install any data center, you basically need three things. You need computers, you need storage, and you need network. If you have these three things, then you can set up the whole data center. Of course, there are subcomponents of all these three things, which we are going to look at soon. So Azure Network. Azure Network represent the network side of Azure Infrastructure as Service. This includes the virtual network switches which you can create. Remember the switches you created, virtual networks you created, subnets you created. The load balancers which you can create. I told you about Windows load balancing, which you can use, install on Windows Server and then use it to like load balance between multiple IaaS servers and web servers, etc. Similarly, there are hardware load balancers also available, which are a lot smarter. So now in this Azure data center, you don't have to buy a load balancer, which if you had a physical data center, you would have bought a load balancer, and that would have been a capex cost, a capital expense. But you don't have to do that now because you are in Azure. You can just subscribe to it, and it's amazingly simple to create a load balancer. You can get firewalls. You don't have to go and buy a SonicWall firewall or a Juniper firewall or a FortiGate firewall. You don't have to buy them. All these are available to you, and you can just select them. So what we have in Azure is something called as appliances. So what are appliances? All these service provider, from SonicWall to Juniper to Cisco, because ultimately when you get a firewall or a router from a service provider, it is ultimately a small computer. There is a motherboard in it, there is a processor in that small box, and then there is an operating system which is running on it, which contains their proprietary solution to prevent you from intrusions and all those things. So what these people do is that they extract their software and then they put it on a virtual machine in cloud. And what you can do is that if you want a physical firewall facility, if you want to actually put a Juniper firewall in your Azure data center, you don't have to physically get the firewall. You can just go and select an appliance, and it is going to spin up a virtual appliance for you. It will have the same functionality, same interface which you could have had in an on-premise firewall. So all these things and VPN and various other components which help to set up to make your network. All devices are virtual and can be deployed on demand. That's your Microsoft Azure network. While deploying between Azure regions, you will have to implement similar strategy like site-to-site VPN, etc., which you would have done in physical network. So one more thing which makes Azure truly awesome is, and in fact, I'm sure AWS as well, I don't use it that much, but that is that when you set up one region, let's say in Asia, and then you set up another region in, say, America, if you would have done it physically, you would have to create some kind of connectivity, physical connectivity, whether a site-to-site VPN or a lease line or MPLS, whatever kind of connectivity you would have had to create. Similarly, if you are setting up different data centers and regions in Azure, you will have to think about the connectivity between them. So it's exactly like how you would have done it in your own network. It's just that you don't get your hands dirty anymore. You don't have to touch the physical servers, and you don't have to worry about the physical components like power or air conditioning or cooling and these kind of components anymore. So that's your Azure network. The networking services in Azure provide a variety of networking capabilities that can be used together or separately. Now, this is a screenshot which I have taken from Microsoft. So there are connectivity services. So this is just a segregation of kind of services which are available in Azure network. Connectivity services. So there is Azure Express Route, which is a type of a VPN. There is a Azure Virtual Networks, which is like a switch for you. There is a VPN gateway. There is IPsec tunnel. There is Azure peering services, and there are so many things which are available. So pretty much everything which you can do in a physical network, you can do it in Azure. Then you have got firewalls, DDoS protection, network security groups, application firewalls. So once again, all the security appliances which are available on premise, they're also available in Azure. Delivery services, content delivery services, Azure front door services, traffic manager, application gateway, internet analyzer, load balancers, all these things, which, believe me, it was very difficult to get some kind of a CDN or these Azure front door services or traffic manager sort of things physically in your office. A small business could never ever have been able to afford such services because these were very expensive. Even if you go ahead and buy a traffic manager kind of a device or a CDN kind of a device, where would you get that kind of bandwidth? And ultimately, like I said, that there is a cost to everything, and the cost has to make sense. You are setting up a new website. Let's say that you are setting up a competition for Netflix. You want an amazing content delivery services. Okay, you created a beautiful software, and you may even found some of the films and series which you can put on your network. But now you go ahead and put everything, but people are not able to stream it because your internet services are pretty tacky at your office, and the service provider is not able. Can you go ahead and upgrade yourself to like unlimited kind of internet, and can you put like multiple internet lines, and can you put multiple traffic managers, and then can you put a lot of load balancers and content delivery services just to make your interface faster? Yes, you can, but do you have the money for it? No. You have just started your business. You don't even know whether it's going to be successful or not. Thanks to cloud services, you can just subscribe to these services or a few $100s, and you can give it a try. If it works out, very good. You can figure out new strategies to reduce cost, or you can keep making it better and better because you are getting more customers. But on day zero, where can you get all this capital from? Which is very difficult. And this used to shatter the dream of various small vendors. But now in cloud, they can subscribe to anything. There is network monitoring, Network Watcher, Express Route Monitor, Azure Monitor. These kind of monitoring softwares, I remember, these comes for thousands and thousands of dollars. And businesses did not used to spend all this money. Yes, we need security, but at what cost? We can't spend that much of money securing ourselves. Like, after a point, you are going to say that, dude, instead of spending this much money, let me be robbed. Because there has to be a value behind everything, correct? Now you can go to this URL. The screenshot is from this URL and you can read more about it if you like. But basically these are the Azure network services. Now what is Azure storage services? Azure storage is a replacement to the on-premise storage which we used to have, like a network attached storage like a NAS or a SaaS. Storage is available in various forms like blob, tables, files, etc. for different price point. Also storage is available in form of SSDs or HDDs. So again, Azure Storage Service is basically the hard drive which you need either for your virtual machines or just as a file server or a network share to keep your data. There is multiple formats of data which is available. There is Azure Blob Services, a massively scalable object store for text and binary data, also included to support for big data analytics through Data Lake Storage Gen 2. I have no clues what is Data Lake Storage. I have not gone too much into those details. Remember guys that storage used to be a topic in itself and it is a technology in itself which is huge. When people were on premise, there used to be a separate storage engineer and I haven't been that storage engineer throughout my life. So the storage guys have more understanding of these things. For me, SSDs versus HDDs and NAS versus SAS is good enough. The ultimate performance of the storage, the IOPS and everything, yeah, I know about them a little bit, but I won't know everything about it. And that's where the total knowledge and information is important for you because you have to draw a line. You cannot get drawn into every direction. You have to become an expert in a certain field. So coming back to the point, Microsoft offer storage in various forms. It offers Azure Files, manage file shares for cloud and on-premise deployment. So you need file shares, use Azure Files. Just go ahead and create your file shares which you created in on-premise file servers. You don't even have to set up file servers anymore. Just create the file shares and access those file shares. Azure Queue. These are messaging store reliable messaging between application components. So you can use Azure Queues as a SMTP server. Just subscribe to Azure Queue and just send out email messages to it and it will forward it for you. This is most likely the interpretation of Azure Queue. Honestly, I haven't used it, but Amazon has a similar service. It is called as SES. So I reckon it is a equivalent service to that. Azure Tables. So for structured data like an Excel data or an Azure data or SQL data, there is something which is available as Azure Tables. Once again, if you need them, you are going to study more about them, you are going to understand them more, and then you are going to use them. So you need to read about them, but this is what is on offer. Azure Disk. So Azure Disk are perfect for your virtual machine, so you can use Azure Disk. Once again, this is the link on which there is a lot more detail about Azure Storage, and if you want to read and go into detail of that, you can do that. But these are the core storage services which is offered. Azure Compute. Azure Compute is something which you should be very familiar with because you have been creating machines. Azure Compute refers to the capability to create virtual machines, both servers or client operating system, because ultimately you can choose any hardware size and you can put any operating system on it. You have been doing it on demand in Azure Cloud. Azure machines are available in predefined sizes in terms of CPU, HDD, RAM. You have seen how we choose a D2 machine or a B2 machine or a F machine or the various other kind of machines which are available based on the size and the performance which are there. So these are predefined sizes. You cannot create a custom machine, but given the options available, you are sure to find something which fits your need because there are so many options which are available and there are more options coming all the time. There are even G2 machines. Now G2 machines are graphic intensive machines. So they have an extensive graphic card built into them so that people who do AutoCAD kind of a work or a high-end work, they can use those machines to deliver their work. These are the various sizes of Azure machines. So for general purpose, you can use a D series machine or a B series machine. For compute, where you have to use high level of computing power, you can use a F series machine. Where you need more memory, you can use a E series machine. And where you need more storage, you can use a L series machine. If you have a graphic intensive work like AutoCAD or something, you can use a N series machine. And if you need a really high performance computer, then you can use a H series machine. So these are various kind of series which are available. Depending on what the need is, you can choose any one of the machine. And the best thing is you can resize the machine. So you can set up a machine today and you can deploy it and you can use it. And if you don't like it, or if for particular reason you need a machine to do some extensive work for you, what you can do is shut it down, stop it, deallocate it, and then redeploy it. And when redeploying it, actually don't redeploy it, there is a button which is called as resize it, and while resizing it will give you the option of all the machines available, and you can choose any one of the available machine. What it's going to do, it will pick up your VHD file, which is the virtual hard drive file, and it will deploy it with better processor and better RAM. So you'll get the exact same machine. Now this time it is highly powerful. Okay, that's Azure compute sizes. All right, so the next topic is Azure Calculator. Imagine if you are setting up an IT infrastructure for an organization, you will need to plan for two things particularly. CAPEX, which is the capital expenditure, like cost to procure the hardwares like servers, network equipment, computers, etc. And cost to implement the initial solution. So you'll have to hire an IT service provider who is going to implement the whole solution for you. Next are going to be operational expenditure. The cost of ongoing support for infrastructure, the cost of replacement of any problematic hardware, any upgrades, any migrations which happen in future. So these are all operational expenditure. Similarly, if we have to set up all this infrastructure in Azure Cloud, we also need this kind of information. However, the benefit with Azure is on-demand consumption. So the capex will be low because we don't have to actually buy the infrastructure. We just pay for using that infrastructure, and we can also scale up the infrastructure when we need. Like I said, on Friday evening we can uh, start using a higher configuration machine, and Monday morning we go back to a lower configuration machine. Our operational cost will also be low because there is no hardware to manage or no machine to upgrade, or basically everything is in cloud, so your responsibility will be very less. But still, to get an idea of the cost which you can incur using Azure infrastructure, Azure provide a handy calculator. So this is what an Azure calculator looks like. Let me go to the Azure calculator and show it to you. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and put Azure calculator here in Google, and this is the first link which comes up here. Okay, let's say that you are setting up some kind of infrastructure, and what they have done is they have provided everything which is available with them. A lot of things which I don't even know of, and hopefully you will learn, hopefully not learn, because these are different things. Like you are never going to need all these kind of things. No one person can be expert in all these things. All right, so different things are required by different people for delivering their work. But anyways, now that you are here in Azure calculator, you can choose the stuff which you need to use, or you need to find out the price of. Now these are featured things because a lot of people are using them. So let's say that you wanted a virtual machine, so you click on this, a virtual machine got added. We haven't chosen the size. Then you wanted networking, so you'll do a Azure network, it got added. You needed in Azure Express Route service. So Express Route is like a connectivity between your on-premise data center and uh, Azure data center. You wanted a firewall, you got this. You also wanted a storage. So what kind of storage you want? You wanted Azure data lake storage. So okay, so what happened here? Here is the cost for everything. So where do you need it? Do you need it in West US, or you can say East US? Let's say whatever region you want to choose, you choose that here. You want a Windows or Linux, you say that here. You want standard tier or a basic tier or a premium tier. Now these are all kind of virtual machines which are available, and then you kind of virtual machine which you want, you can say that. And you can also put the number of hours. Let's say that you already know that you only going to need this machine for 50 hours in a month. So you can quickly calculate how much it is going to cost you. And then you can say different options, like you can buy it for 3 years. So of course, if you buy in bulk, Microsoft gives you a lot of discount. So within 1 year, you get 38% discount. And with 3 years, you can get a lot more discount. So you can choose that. You can say license included, that is you are going to pay for the license in Azure, or you can say that I already have a license and you can reduce that cost. So look here, look at the cost difference. It's $92 when the license is provided by you, and is $131 when the license is provided by Microsoft. So that's a lot of saving. Similarly, in network, you can say if it is in same region or if it is in multiple regions, what kind of data transfer you're expecting, and all kind of cost which is involved. So you can to provide all this information. For express route, once again, what kind of express route you want, whether it is zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So Microsoft has segregated the various regions which it provide into kind of zones. You can read about them, but again, when you are planning your data center, you can decide on these things. So I'm just giving you a hang of the calculator. All these information is available, and yeah, you can reduce the number of hours, or the kind of things, number of circuits which you need here. And honestly, I don't know what circuit mean here. So once again, all these are very different technologies, and you need to do some kind of a digging whenever you are going into a particular direction or trying to work out in one direction. But the point is that you don't need to be perplexed of it, overwhelmed of it. These are simple technologies. Ultimately, everything comes down to a IP and its connectivity. Now, whether that connectivity is paid or whether that connectivity is free, that's a situation which you evaluate in case by case basis, and everything is very logical. So that's what expert route is. It's basically a site-to-site VPN. Then firewall. Again, you don't need a firewall because you need the server only for 50 hours. So firewall is also required only for 50 hours. So instead of paying for 730 hours, which is basically 31 into 24 hours, 31 days, 24 hours is around 730. You are going to pay for 52 hours, and then you are going to save the cost. Storage, once again, the options which are available to you, the cost, the GB, the sizes, you do all that, and yep. So estimated monthly cost is $251, and you can export this here, and you can save it, and you can show it to your bosses and managers. So that's what an Azure calculator is. You can quickly figure out the cost of the consumption and whatever services you are going to need. All right. Now we are going to do a brief introduction to AWS. AWS, or Amazon Web Services, is Microsoft's predecessor in cloud computing space. It offers almost all the services like network, compute, storage, and other platform as services like Microsoft, but it has different names for it. I personally feel that Microsoft has an edge on cloud because how Microsoft is fully scaled inside out in corporate IT infrastructure. So AWS is just a data center or just a cloud service provider, whereas Microsoft is in the life and blood of the companies. They are using Microsoft operating systems, they are using Microsoft servers, they are using Microsoft Exchange, which is the corporate email solution. It's a awesome platform which everybody is using. So the Microsoft DNA is too much ingrained into all the companies. However, I feel Amazon is a very competitive company, and they did really a lot of hard work, and they supported their customers really too much, whereas Microsoft was busy building great solutions and softwares and all that, and they were not like, they were helping their customers with the help of their softwares, but they were not like highly customer centric or running after customers, because they don't have to. They just have amazing products and people come after them any which ways. So AWS did a very good work initially, and they have made a lot of solid customers who are using AWS services. Their solutions have evolved a lot, but I feel that ultimately Microsoft is going to have an edge because of the integrated platforms which they have, and how Azure and everything, and the client operating systems and the server operating system on premise, and everything is going to sync up to each other and going to be one ecosystem. However, AWS has a first mover advantage in IT cloud space, and also it's performing quite well so far. I don't use AWS myself and would not focus on it during this training. However, it is a highly used platform, and the fundamentals which you have learned will remain the same. I encourage you to learn more and more about AWS, and it's a highly rewarding field. So AWS is definitely a platform which is used by masses across the globe. And if you learn more and more AWS, it's going to be very helpful for you. So this is a link which I'm going to open. This link basically is a Microsoft link which compares the AWS services to itself. So AWS Marketplace, Azure Marketplace. AWS has a service called as SageMaker. Microsoft call it machine learning. They have Alexa Skill Kit. Azure have Bot Framework. They have Lex. They have speech services. They have Lex. They have language understanding. They have polytranscribing. They have speech services. They have Recogniton. They have cognitive services. They have Skill Kits. They have virtual assistant. Similarly, Redshift, Synapse Analytics, Lake Transformation, Data Share. Big data processing, they have EMR, they have Databricks, they have EMR, they have HT Insights. Once again, these are all the services which Azure is offering. Like in compute, they call their virtual machine EC2 or Elastic Compute, and we call them virtual machines. They have auto scaling, we have virtual machine scale sets. They have parallel cluster, we have cycle cloud. So everything which is available with them, that is available with Azure, or everything which is available with Azure, I can't say everything is available with them because they don't all own all the operating systems and everything. However, Microsoft give them the operating system, and most of the OS operating system are there. And I don't have a particular example which Azure has and AWS doesn't have. But I'm sure gradually there will be components which Microsoft will be able to put in Azure, which may not be that natively available in AWS, given that Microsoft has its own like Azure and the operating systems and all that, they belong to the same company. Okay, so yeah, once again, you can go to this link and you can find out the various services and how they are called in AWS and Azure. That's it. This is the end of this module, guys. So here is what we covered in this module. We spoke about what is cloud. We discussed the benefits of cloud, like it's on demand and you don't have a capex and you can access it from anywhere. Then we spoke about the different pillars in cloud, which is software as service, infrastructure as service, and platform as service. I discussed the difference between the co-location service provider and the cloud service provider. The difference is the fabric, the Azure fabric, which is there. We gave you an overview of the Azure Cloud Services, the IaaS and the PaaS offerings, and the SaaS offerings of Azure. I showed you the Azure calculator, how you can quickly calculate your monthly expenses, which you're going to incur with Azure. And then I give you a brief introduction to AWS. So here are your action items. Once again, read more about Azure and AWS. Mainly, I would say focus on Azure. Find out the various services which are listed in Azure. Think about the services which you can use or which you are interested in. There are a lot of services like cognitive services and data lake services, and these services are not exactly IT infrastructure field. These services are more used by developmental people or the people who are writing programs, because what they can do is that they can outsource some piece of their program of analytics and cognitive to the services which are available here, and they don't have to write a huge piece of software themselves. It helps them two ways. A, they may not even know how to write it, and B, even if they know it, then they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody has already written a perfectly capable code, and they can just pass on their data and get the results out of it. So, um, those are the cognitive and other services which are available. I would encourage you go through and understand what those services are. It's good to know about stuff so that you can talk about it. Find out more services in Azure which can be categorized under SaaS and PaaS, like there is cognitive services which may come under PaaS or SaaS, or there are data lake services or data services or big data services which again can come under PaaS. So have a look at various services. I have given you a very high level overview of these services. So feel free, read more, figure out what all these services are, and yeah, you'll be an awesome cloud engineer. So that's it for this module, guys, and I will see you in the next module soon. Bye bye.